Well, it's been Gonzaga, then Baylor all season, but Michigan came out of its COVID-19 pause looking as good as they have all season long, and Baylor struggled in their first two games. It was officially time to move Michigan to number 2, and as we all know, things change. Illinois blew out Michigan. Baylor and West Virginia went to overtime, and the Bears came out on top on that one. Baylor jumps Michigan to the spot that they've kept warm all season long. Let's take a look at some of those number 1 seeds. This is according to our Jerry Palm. So Gonzaga and Baylor, followed by Michigan and Illinois. Before last night's Illinois was on shaky grounds as the 4th number 1 seed, but they beat Michigan and Ann Arbor by 23, so that's why they are there on the list. Let's welcome in our basketball insider, Gary Parrish. Of course, we know things are going to change, and it's March and the madness happens, but we just saw the list. Who would you say is the most dangerous 1 seed out there right now?
I think it's the one that's been the most dangerous 1 seed all season, and that is the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I know that, some people have gotten into a debate in recent months about, is Baylor really the best team in the country, or is Michigan really the best team in the country? But I never moved off of the Zags. When they were playing high major competition like Iowa and Kansas and Virginia and West Virginia, everybody agreed that Gonzaga was the best team in the country. And they've done nothing to move off of that since they started playing in the West Coast Conference. They've just been dominating teams, winning by an average of 24.1 points per game. They're undefeated. They're number 1 in every computer. They've got multiple future lottery picks on the roster, a future Hall of Fame coach on the sideline. They are elite offensively. They're elite defensively. They are the favorite to win the 2021 NCAA tournament, and they absolutely should be.
You know who's not a favorite? Duke. Yeah, that's right. Duke dropped the overtime decision at Georgia Tech. The loss is the 2nd in a row for the Blue Devils, who are headed for another bubble battle on Saturday, and that's against rival North Carolina. That'll be the regular season finale for both. And we're going to get into that Yellow Jackets game in a moment. But what the heck is going on with Blue Devils this season?
I think some of it is that they are heavily reliant on first-year players, and being heavily reliant on first-year players in the middle of a pandemic has been a terrible recipe, whether it's at Duke, Kentucky, or North Carolina. This team, though, last week, after it recorded a big win over Virginia, had a realistic path to an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. I had made it pretty clear. From my perspective, they needed to win at home this past weekend against Louisville and then split Georgia Tech, North Carolina to enter the ACC tournament with, again, a realistic chance to get an at-large bid. As you know, they lose at home to Louisville, then they lose at Georgia Tech. Now, even with a win at North Carolina to close the regular season, they've still got a lot of work to do in the ACC tournament to get an at-large bid. If you were betting on it right now, you would bet on Duke missing the NCAA tournament and Coach K having his streak of consecutive appearances snapped at 24. It's not definite, but it certainly appears to be heading in that direction.
And I want to go back to that Georgia Tech game for a second. 11 years, 14 consecutive defeats over their last win over Duke, and the Yellow Jackets, they finally were able to pull it off against the Blue Devils. What did you see specifically in that game?
Georgia Tech's a rock-solid basketball team. I've operated off of the national radar for much of this season because they took 2 terrible losses early after going contactless in the preseason because of COVID protocols. They simply weren't ready to play when it was time to start playing games. But if you can take those losses and set them over here and just focus on what Georgia Tech has been since then, it's been probably one of the best 30, 35 teams in America. Josh Pastner, went to multiple NCAA tournaments as the head coach at Memphis. He has not gotten there yet as the head coach at Georgia Tech, but that win over Duke moves the Yellow Jackets in the proper direction, and barring something crazy like a horrific loss in the ACC tournament very early, it looks like Georgia Tech is going to be in the NCAA tournament, which is obviously an incredible accomplishment for Josh and that staff.
All right, I want to move forward about a team like Indiana, now 500 after losing 4 straight games. What has changed for the Hoosiers? What's going on there?
Some of this is schedule-induced, but that is no excuse. I mean, this is you play in the Big Ten, you got to play Big Ten opponents. Now, the schedule that they've had to run through has been really, really difficult, but you can't lose this often and go to the NCAA tournament. I tell you, I'm shocked by the way this is going. When Archie Miller was hired at Indiana. I thought it was about as sure a thing as you could possibly do, given his success at Dayton and just what I knew about Archie on a personal level. It obviously hasn't gone well, and now they're 3 games below 500 in the first 2 quadrants, obviously heading the wrong direction. This is a team that hasn't won more than 2 games in a row all season long. Now they probably need to win something like 4 or 5 to get to the NCAA tournament. Seems unlikely to happen, which means, assuming Archie Miller keeps his job, and I think that he will, he's going to likely enter year 5 at Indiana with 0 NCAA tournament appearances. His predecessor, Tom Crean, went to the Sweet 16 in year 4 and won an outright Big Ten title in year 5. Archie is so far not living up to the expectations that I think every even reasonable Indiana fan had for him.
I want to talk about the Blue Bloods team this season and the struggles that they're having. If we can pull up just to take a look at some of those teams that are out there that have been struggling. You got Kansas, UCLA, North Carolina. We just talked about Indiana and Duke, obviously. What do you think is happening with this group?
Well, it's different circumstances at each place. But if you'll focus strictly on North Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky, which are 3 of the biggest brands in the sport, and they could all miss the NCAA tournament. Looks like Kentucky definitely will. Looks like Duke probably will, and North Carolina could still go either way. If you look at the top of the sport right now, whether it's Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, Illinois, Houston, Villanova, most of these teams are led by non-freshmen who were in the program pre-pandemic. Now you take that and focus on Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina. Just the opposite. Largely reliant on first-year players who were not in the program pre-pandemic. So why does that matter? Well, in the middle of this pandemic, the student athletes weren't on campus when they normally would have been. They didn't get the off-season instruction as consistently as they otherwise would have. They weren't allowed to play pickup, at 8 o'clock at night with each other in the practice facility like they would in normal years. They didn't get to hang out with each other the way they would in normal years. Then you didn't get exhibitions, you didn't get scrimmages, you didn't get the bye games to work out any kinks and develop chemistry. And it has really, really taken a toll on those 3 big brands in this sport. I think John Calipari, Roy Williams, and Mike Krzyzewski will all bounce back strong. But simply put, in the middle of this pandemic and everything that comes with it, those programs were not equipped, based on the way the rosters were built, to succeed in this unusual season.
Obviously showing that veteran leadership also has a huge play in this. So we have an exciting matchup tonight between Oregon and UCLA. I'm sure we'll be talking about that one later. If you want more from our guy, Gary Parrish, you got to tune into the Eye on College Basketball podcast. You got commentary, reporting, insider information, and so much more. Tune in and subscribe.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.